What if all the rich, diverse journeys of our souls are how God explores the universe as us? And what if we awaken to that? What then? Come join us as we open the door to all the adventures of being human in these times on this beautiful planet we call home. Hi, welcome to today's show. We have a great guest today. Her name is Donna Tosky, and she's a friend via a group that we're doing together on Lynn McTaggart's Intention Circles. And I learned from Donna that she was going to go to a Joe DIspenza retreat. A lot of people were interested in that and wanted to find out more about what it's like, and how challenging is it, how rewarding is it, what actually happens there. So we talked about that initially, but we also talk about the journey of her life. And as it unfolds, we learn some really interesting things about the journey of a soul who has gone through a series of years and trainings that emphasized taking 100% responsibility for what shows up in your life, even things like COVID. And you'll see as we go along just exactly what this led to. It's pretty amazing. So stay tuned. Hi, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Susan. It's my pleasure to be here. And what I do is I work with couples who are struggling in their marriage or relationship, and I take a very different approach than counseling or therapy. Rather than anything being wrong, I like people to go with the flow of who they are as either men or women. So I have a big gender piece in my work because, if we look at some of the scientific studies, they show like men and women, we communicate very differently. Even our hormones impact our communication. So men and women are related to relationship, they're related to safety, they're related to communication differently. So that's what I do. Right now, I specialize in doing 2-day programs with couples. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, great. And so you got interested in going to the Joe Dispenza retreat because, and what were you expecting and what was your purpose in going there? It was a week-long retreat.
Yeah, 7 days. It's a meditation retreat, and I am no expert in meditation. After the COVID, whatever that was,
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of fear coming up. It was in the background. It seemed that no matter what was going on, no matter the circumstances, and no matter what my intellect told me,
Mm-hmm.
nothing to be afraid of. So I got very interested in that. And it occurred to me that if I say I generate my reality,
Mm-hmm.
if I say that, which is what I say, it's what I tell my couples,
Uh-huh.
gotta walk my talk.
Yeah,
If I
right.
say, right? Yeah, if I say I generate my reality, then could I be generating that?
Mm-hmm. By that you mean the whole global situation, even that you're experiencing, or do you mean
All
just
of it,
all of it?
all of it.
All of it.
Even how you show up, even how
Mhm.
the person who commits a crime shows up, even how my disempowered couples show up.
Yeah, that's an incredible level of responsibility. So
Yes.
tell us
And
more.
I was doing like a lot of
Mhm.
self-development since the late 90s. And what I was doing work that's put out by Landmark Education Corporation. And I'm pretty sure that many of your listeners will have heard of that. Have you heard of that?
I think so. Is that the one that's kind of vaguely was originally related to Est?
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what came out of Est. And so I had done a lot of that. And and yet that's quite intellectual, deals with the intellect. In my work, I found myself saying to my couples, think you guys are addicted. You're addicted to the chemicals that accompany your anger with one another or your frustration with one another. And one of my couples, somebody said to me, oh, you must have done Joe Dispenza's work. And I said, no, wow. And yet I'd heard of him. I thought, oh, let me check this out. Is he talking about this?
Hmm.
I find out that he is. And so it kind of hit me from all different directions. Joe Dispenza from this direction, Joe Dispenza over here, over here, over here. And that I could see listening to him that, yeah, we generate our reality coming from what we think and how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
What we think is what we put out to the field, like our intention, like the electrical signal out to the
Uh-huh.
field. And our feeling, how we feel about it, is how we feel about anything is what we will pull toward ourselves, was the basic
Mm-hmm.
message.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, if I could do this modality and that modality, but what if I could generate a new reality? Like, no kidding. My logic is I can't really generate a new reality until I take full responsibility for what I generate now and have generated. I got
Mm-hmm.
to really get that.
Yeah, I like that.
And in some of this self-development work with Landmark, one of the possibilities that I created for myself years ago was the possibility of being 100% responsible for my life. So
Yeah,
if I was 100% responsible for my life, that means that I am 100% responsible for all of it.
it's not just for how you respond to it or how you process it, but its actual existence. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. So that's a little different, right? That's a
Yeah,
little different.
that's kind of a hard one to grapple with. My husband and I were having a discussion about this very thing this morning at breakfast, and
Ah, right.
it's just like, it's to me it's confusing, or there's sort of paradoxes in it that are difficult.
Okay, so COVID, let's take COVID.
Yeah.
You had your experience of it. Your listeners had their experience of it. I had my experience of it, but my reality is one reality of infinite possibilities.
Yes.
So my reality is never going to be the same as yours or anybody else's. So why worry about that? That's what why worry about how anybody else sees it? How I'm going to influence anybody out there? It's just like that saying, like, peace begins with me.
Okay. So I guess I'm just sort of thinking that if one is responsible completely for one's own experience of life, and including not just your emotional reactions and opinions and judgments, but the fact that it shows up, the fact that
Yes.
the COVID thing, because in this case, happened at all, and then we saw the
Yes.
various things we all saw on the news, or we saw different things, maybe depending on which channels we watched and so on. Definitely see how we can control many aspects of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. But I just have trouble seeing how we can control other people's or global kind of levels of things going on, or physical reality. But you're saying something like that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know
Yeah.
how it happens,
Mm-hmm.
but it just makes a lot of sense to me that it is my reality. It's nobody else's reality. And I remember standing on the sidewalk when I was 6 years old. And, I had an interesting childhood in that, my mother on her bookshelf, she had autobiography of a yogi, she had the Holy Bible, and then she had some Buddhist book.
That's unusual.
Yeah, and Edgar Casey, so I was always kind of poking in her books, and I was somebody that, I did lucid dreaming, I was doing out of body. I thought it was normal. I was doing that since
Oh.
I was a kid, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say in the past 5 years have been really noticing that I would have a thought that something was going to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
then it would happen, and I think, oh, well, I'm psychic. And
Uh-huh.
now I'm thinking, no, wait a minute. Am I psychic or am I creating this?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've had similar experiences. Yeah. Well,
I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of it, just like anybody else. I mean, it's
right.
kind of crazy here,
We're
the
all
world. And I'm,
exploring this thing we call reality. What is it? It seems like this whole COVID adventure, which has caused a lot of us to question reality, question what's going on, at least outwardly, that's also causing now more and more people to question what's going on inwardly, if you will, or just what's the connection between the two.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Right. And even like, and who am I? Who
Yes.
am I? In this past year, I've been thinking, like, okay, come on here. Throw me a bone because I'm getting, you know, I'm in, Jen Fonda talks about the different stages of the different acts of your life. I think I'm maybe on my last one, right? If you divide your life up into
Yeah.
quarters, and it's like, okay, come on, I want to get on with it here. What's happening? What am I supposed to be doing here?
Yeah. Right. What are you here to learn?
Yeah, or what is this? What's the purpose? What's going on? Because this is craziness, and if I have anything to do with it, then I want to know because it's like, okay,
That's great.
what am I going to do about this? And I just sort
Yeah,
of it occurs to
right.
me like this is like just, a boil is going to pop and all
Mm-hmm.
this pus and yucky stuff is going to come out. I
Yeah.
think this is a little bit what's happening. Stuff is coming up.
Uh-huh.
And I look at myself. I have these fears coming up. And you can look at that either like that's a bad thing or that's a good thing.
Uh-huh. But
Depends on how you,
here's about like what might happen in the future. Yeah.
yeah, what might happen in the future, in particular with the COVID
Mm-hmm.
stuff. My experience of it was like the government was kind of getting in my business,
Well, for sure. Me too. I think, yeah, a lot of us were
telling
feeling
me
that.
what to do about yeah, how I'm going to
Right.
handle my health.
And increasingly, and then when we see censorship and things like that happening, especially if those of us from the West who are used to having freedom of speech, that's pretty concerning.
100%. And, for me, I had always wondered, how did this thing happen in Germany? How did this Holocaust happen?
Yes.
How could that happen? And the German people didn't stop that, didn't object to that. And I just had a lot of questions about that. And even when I was a kid, like 12, I was getting my hands on these books
Mm-hmm.
that talked about that, the Holocaust. I was always very curious about how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, wow. And could it ever happen again?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that whole COVID experience said to me, now I know how it happened.
Good. Yeah. It's
Wow.
like a mass psychosis, maybe like some people have been talking about. Or
Yeah,
if the people want to go, the Ash conformity experiments where people will say, yes, this finger is longer than this one, if other people say it.
absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And so that's kind of got me interested in, well, what's my role? And Dispenza talks a lot about, um, we're spending all our time outside, out
Mhm.
here, where we really have no power. So when you talk about controlling, you
Yeah.
know, you have no power coming from this place, matter to matter. I have no
Uh-huh.
power.
Very little
And
anyway. Maybe if you're a politician, maybe not. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Not
and
much.
ultimately, I could see that my whole life was given being distracted by the out here.
Yes.
And his deal is like meditation. You're looking this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I had begun to recommend meditation to my clients who were getting stuck. They were stuck on fear, they were stuck on anxiety and couldn't move past. And it was occurring to me now that now we're dealing with the subconscious mind,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's a little bit related to me creating my reality,
Yeah.
generating reality. I don't do that consciously, but could this be a lot of what's showing up in my world? This fear coming up to the surface,
Oh.
fear that's been subconscious, not in my, nothing I can really do directly with that. But
Mm-hmm.
Joe Dispenza talks about the conscious mind, 5%, the subconscious mind, 95%, and then you got the analytical mind.
Mm.
And it's that analytical mind that's kind of like a filter. He's talking about addiction. Well, I looked at myself and I thought, what is it that in my reality I've created these great big events that kind of take myself out or
Mm-hmm.
change or have me change direction. Changing direction, it's always been a good thing. When I look at some of these big events that have happened, I was in my early 20s and the love of my life died. Wow, big tragedy. It's like I do, go big or go home.
Oh.
I thought to myself, man, like, wow, does reality really need to happen like this for me to get a lesson or for me to change direction or to learn something? And that's kind of how I viewed the whole COVID thing. Like, whoa, okay, okay, you've got my attention.
Wow, that's an amazing view. I love it. And almost nobody's speaking of it this way. I'm so pleased to
Hmm.
be able to hear what you have to say about that because very few are speaking at that level. It's either all about the politics of the situation or what's going on behind the scenes, or
Hmm.
it's all about the spirituality. But to bring those two together is really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, and you want to take a look at my Facebook page. It's not like I don't complain about politics, and I do. And
Yeah.
yet there's this part of me that says, well, wait a minute. For example, I get cut off on the highway and I want to call that person a jerk.
Hmm.
Who put them there? I did. Who put anything there the way it's there? Well, for me, it's really exciting and it kind of scares the crap out of me because I don't, whew, it's big. But what if I did? What if really, like, no kidding, on some level, I generate every single thing and how it shows up? I
Yeah.
just think that's amazing. There's something about that that really
Yeah.
jazzes me, and yet it scares the crap out of me.
I totally relate. And I like the way you put that, like what if, because it's hard to know with absolute certainty unless we find that suddenly we can just sort of say, okay, I want the sky to be purple and it turns purple. If I ever get to that point, then I know totally that I'm generating it. But
Well,
but
it's
there's a part
interesting
of
you
me
say that.
when I've gotten close to that, sometimes I have had experiences of changing the weather, I think, with some other people sometimes. And then I start getting scared, like, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to have this power.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like how I see that is if I'm testing, then I don't really believe.
Yeah.
Or maybe on some level, I'm not ready for it. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, we're big meaning making machines. I don't know. I
We
have to
are.
be careful of how I interpret things. Yeah, it's like wow, that is at a very it's at a very different level. Like I don't get to complain. I don't get to make people wrong. Even in my work, I tell couples stop making each other wrong. But if they're showing up in my reality, making one another wrong, and if my reality is a reflection of me,
Hmm.
we say that intellectually, oh yeah, yeah, but do we
Yeah.
really believe that? Because if we did, we'd be then doing something about that. We'd be
Yeah.
taking responsibility for that rather than saying it's them.
Right. So I know in Christian Science, my husband has read a lot of that. He says that the practitioner that's effective anyway will, when the ailing patient or whatever comes in front of them, they don't see it like there's somebody out there that has a problem. They see like, what is it in me that's seeing
Right,
this as anything other than the perfection of God? And then they go
right.
inside and shift their view, and then that's when the healing occurs.
Sure, and that reminds me of Ho'oponopono,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because when you're saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and you're saying that, it's my understanding anyway, you're saying that to that part of you that generated that situation or that
Hmm.
person to be a
Mm.
certain way that they are.
Hmm.
You're actually you're speaking to you.
Yeah. And the you that we're talking about really has got to be something beyond Donna Tosky or Susan Pitcairn. It's not this body or this personality. It seems to be that deep consciousness within us that has the feeling of being connected with so-called others or whatever, and that with the whole field, with everything, would you say?
Well, that's one of the things that I really discovered. Dispenza talks about losing yourself, becoming nobody,
Yes.
no one, nowhere, and no time. And so when I was preparing to go to this retreat, he asks that you do this online bundle. He calls it the intensive and the progressive, and 26 hours worth of material. You've got to kind of watch and do. And I noticed as I was doing some of the meditations that he gets you to do in between his lectures online, he gets you to do meditations. I was having difficulty with my body
Hmm.
even sitting still. And the idea is to take the mind out of the body because, yeah, you are you, Susan Pitcairn. That's not who you are.
Yeah.
This is not who I am. And in the retreat, when daily, you're doing maybe like 6 hours a day of
It's pretty
it's
intensive.
like it's
A lot of
pretty.
sitting. It's a lot of sitting
It's a lot of sitting, and I
in a
didn't
big
think
crowd of
I'd be
people
able
in a
to
big
do it.
room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And I thought, and I had to be very careful of my analytical mind, because I put out all this dough, and now I'm thinking, oh my God, fear, like, oh my God, there's no way I'll be able to do this. And one thing I really learned was was who I am in this 3D reality is not at all who I am when I'm in the field
Yeah.
as a point of awareness. And it's shocking to me. I mean, intellectually, I say, oh, yes, of course. But to have the experience,
Uh-huh.
it's shocking to
Yeah.
me, the difference. In
Just a bit.
other words, Susan, can't tr I can't trust that this means anything. This
Mm-hmm.
3D,
Huh.
it's so different. Was really one of the things that I came out, of this whole thing with, like, whoa. And it's not like it's a conclusion. It's not like it's an answer. It's just like the beginning now.
Okay, so great. So back to just for those who may not understand, and I'm not sure I fully do either, how arduous that can look to the mind at first, because you're sitting like 6 hours a day. I understand sometimes they don't finish till 8 o'clock at night. Maybe who knows if you get dinner, and you're in a room
Hmm.
with maybe 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 people,
Hmm.
and there could be all kinds of Wi-Fi and I don't know, phones on, I don't know, whatever there might be, and then you just have a little chair to sit in, or maybe some people seem to have comfier looking chairs,
Yeah,
blankets.
yeah.
There's maybe ways you can comfort yourself, but if you have trouble sitting for some reason physically, or you think that you're going to, that would be very challenging. So what happened specifically for you dealing with those kinds of issues?
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that Dispenza says there is to overcome.
Yes.
Overcome that your body needs to move, overcome that your body needs to stand up, that you've got this pain, that you've got these distractions. And so, and so as I was preparing for the retreat, that was in my face.
Right.
I was feeling a lot of pain, even sitting there 15 minutes in. I'm like, oh, my back, my neck. And really, you know, I had to really control my mind there, like even a week out, a week from going to the retreat. I had to really control my mind. I thought, you put a lot of money down here, money for the retreat itself, money for the flight, money for our Airbnb. I said, you just can't go. You got to get over it,
Yeah.
which is kind of his whole point. You got to distinguish that those things are not who you are, and
Mhm.
will you let them lead?
Or
What
did you?
happened was, like I say, I did some of the preparation before so that I could sit and meditate for an hour without, you know, having to get up, or I could do that. So I thought, okay, great. That's great. Well, our room was 2,100 people. And of course everybody's trying to bring everything they can to be comfortable. And one in our group, she brought an inflatable donut cushion.
Uh-huh.
So I could sit on it and then my butt could move a little bit. I think it really saved me. Right.
Uh-huh.
So that I was doing 2.5 hours,
Hmm.
and not a big deal. If you have to move a little bit, like, okay, or cough or sneeze or whatever. Yeah, we're still people,
Right.
we have these bodies. It really worked out. Part of it as well is like you're in a room where there's intention. We're there for a reason, and we are creating coherence in that room so that you're riding the energy of the room. And I got sick, I think on the fourth day, but I think it was like going outside in Texas weather, either 100 Fahrenheit for you guys, or even more, and then into air conditioning. And what I noticed was before a meditation would start, jack up the air conditioning. Maybe they didn't want people to fall asleep,
Hmm.
to keep them as alert as possible. And so it was this cold, hot, cold, hot. But here's the deal: was I pretty sure it was on day 5. It was on the Thursday where we were supposed to be there at 4 a.m. and they did a 4.5 to 5 hour meditation.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't do it. I know I go like this to my husband. Okay, you're epic. Can you imagine 5 hours?
Without
And
breakfast,
they
Susie.
did it. And
Oh,
they did it. They did it. So
oh,
I just would say to anybody, I got that you might be afraid that you couldn't sit. And yeah, they've got these special chairs if you have a big concern. Let's say, you've broken your tailbone, you can't sit like that for very long. You let them know in advance and they'll give you a special one of those chairs that is
oh.
kind of soft. And yeah, and you can do that. You
The
just got to
question,
kind of make arrangements before. what they did was they didn't make a big deal about it. Like, in other words, they didn't say, "Oh, if you've got a physical issue, it's okay. You can take care of it." They didn't make a big deal about that. And so those people like me who thought I couldn't handle it when I actually could handle it,
Uh-huh.
I think they don't want to create a big opening for that your body's going to run the show.
But if you did
That
get
has,
up or stand up, would you be ostracized? I mean, that would happen maybe like in back in
no,
the death seminars.
no, that. And yet, yeah, sure, they get up, stand over to the side.
Yeah.
And many people did that.
Uh-huh.
People that just could not, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, couldn't sit there. They had to get up. They ask you just go over to the side,
Mhm.
to the wall. They've got a lot of helpers there, and then you can go talk to them and tell them what you need. Now I've got this tinnitus going on, so my hearing is a little impaired, and I did not realize the extent, even in a large room where his sound, his speaking and the music is coming off a microphone. Well, when I discovered that I could get a set of headphones, wow. I
Mhm.
put these headphones on, and it was really great for me because it was like he was talking right into my ears. It just helped me so much to be present. And so, they will accommodate. You can be accommodated. I would tell people, like, don't be afraid. It's
Ask.
okay.
Let's go ahead and
And
ask.
you will see that you can stretch even without feeling like you're stretching. Before you know it, you're doing things, for example, sitting for longer than you thought you could, or meditating for longer than you thought you could, which is the whole point.
Right. So that early morning where your husband did get up and do the 4.5, 5 hour meditation, what did you do then?
Yeah, the day before, I was not feeling well. And so they were doing this meditation where they're telling everybody to sit down, but they leave room between the rows so that you can put a mat down. As we started, I thought, I think I have to lie down because I'm going to fall off my chair. I'm not feeling well. And so then we were going into lunch, which is late lunch, like about 2 o'clock. And I said, "Can you drive me back to the Airbnb? I'm feeling sick." So I went back, and I was reeling, and there was a part of my mind. I went to this place like, yeah, here you go. You're taking yourself out. You always do this, that
Uh-huh.
conversation,
Yeah.
that we all
Yep.
have whatever it is for you.
Negative self-talk.
And then I just said to myself, knock it off. You're not feeling well. Do whatever you have to do to get back in that room because you're getting back in that room.
Hmm.
And so I just lie down. I slept. The people came back to the house to get a sleep, to get up at 3 a.m. so that they could be there at 4.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
So I went back to sleep. Now, this corresponds to this whole pineal gland conversation, melatonin and the kind of the time for a mystical experience and the pineal gland to be active is at 4 a.m. It's a good time for that. So that's what that meditation was about. I wake up at 5:30, they're all gone. I still feel really lousy, but you know what? Good enough to go back. So I missed the big epic 5 hour deal, but the rest of my group got it. And I said, "How was it? How was it?" Two of them were really mad. I said, "What are you mad about? It was so cold in there." Dr. Joe makes a joke about, "Oh, everybody wants to wring my neck." People wanted to wring his neck. I kill that guy.
Well,
They were just angry that it was that cold. But the point is to show people, look at what you can do. You can do more than you think you can do.
hmm. It's kind of like a firewalk or something here.
Like, I don't know, like I was pleased, that I could sit.
No.
I had all these fears and,
Right.
I can't do this.
Well, how has that changed for you? I mean, have you had a lasting positive effects? Have you had any health issues resolved? Any other issues that have uplifted in your life after going
Right.
to the retreat?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So I came into that with some physical stuff.
Hmm.
And one of the things is I've got these hips that just don't seem to be working right. And so I used to be very athletic when I was younger and used to run and ski and all that. Well, that's gone. Then power walking, well, that's gone because I kind of have this knee and these hips. And so I have not really been walking normally since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when I came in, I wasn't expecting anything. I thought, look, don't go there because,
Oh,
expectation. And then when you don't get what you want, no, 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 no. I thought, no, that's not, don't go there.
mm-hmm.
And we had this meditation. It it was called Body Electric, where we were going through our energy centers, and he was kind of taking us through this and sort of activating the pineal gland at the same time. And I was having this experience of like literally like electricity going up and down my legs, just like wow, very. Even when I talk about it now, the hair stands on my,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
on my arms, up on my arms. Anyway, directly after that, we got up and we walked and we did a walking meditation. And as I was walking, I was like, oh, because my story was to them, oh, I can't walk and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. Right. And they said, well, you don't have to. You can sit down if you have to. The whole time I was saying, okay, body, you don't get to run everything. You don't get to
Uh-huh.
say. And can I say rather than always my body?
Mm-hmm.
And so there I was out there doing this walking meditation, and I had to pull myself back because I dropped into this part of my mind that went, oh, wow, look at this. And I was walking with absolutely no pain in my hip,
Mm.
no pain in my knees, nothing. I was just strutting. And I remember, like, with a big smile on my face, like, okay. And what Dispenza says is if you can do it once, just once, you can do it again.
So have you been able to do it again since you've gotten home?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
For me, I have to be very conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I have to set myself up before I'm going to do this and that it's going to work for me. And what I mean by work for me is that I can walk pain free
Yeah.
rather than just get up and walk. I
Right.
kind of have to
Right.
really
Sure.
set myself up and set the body, which is what the meditation is about.
That's wonderful.
It is
And
wonderful.
were there some miraculous stories from the retreat of other people? We've heard stories about the blind seeing, the lame walking, a thyroid gland reappearing. There's some amazing stories I've heard from his movie and things online. So what was your experience there at that retreat?
Was 2,100 people. And I know there were things going on there because you could hear people from time to time, and particularly in the coherence healing, right, where we were focused on healing. 6 people. What I saw mostly was there would be 3 chairs. There'd be a person lying down on a mat
Mhm.
or in one of those comfortable chairs if they couldn't lie down. And then there would be 3 chairs on one side and 3 chairs on the other side. So we would be out the door in 2 lines, kind of getting into this meditative state. Then we would come in, and wherever we landed, whichever chair we landed at, that would
Mhm.
be our chair, and then sit down. And then he would take us through a meditation, and then we'd kind of prepare, rub our hands together, and
Mhm.
then our energy would be on that person. When I talked to some of those people later, one gal said she was sort of reliving part of her childhood and just letting go of this pain and this fear
Mhm.
of, something happened in her family with her father over a period of years. And for her, like there's just this light. That was a very common theme that people would see this white light
Mhm.
and I merge with the light, or different things happen with the light. I was buddies with this gal from Australia.
Mhm.
She said she saw 3 beings in black robes
Mhm.
and they came into her, and she said things were, really moving around. And I've yet to follow up. I've
Yeah.
yet to follow up with her because um, my particular group did not have the instruments in it. They were not collecting data in my group. What you saw on the movie, the source
Oh.
um, is within, where they will have independent scientists there setting up their instruments and taking data. That did not happen in my group. It doesn't happen in every group. I gather maybe it's once a year where they collect data, because then they have to take it off for analysis, and they've got a bunch of data that they have to analyze. And it's interesting. There's so many people. And the idea is to kind of go this way, is to kind of shrink your world and go inward. And in the beginning, I found myself talking a lot to other people. And then towards the end, I was just kind of going in this direction, and I would hear what I would hear, but I wasn't all that interested in other people's stories at that point. I
Yeah.
knew I was going to hear them later, because I was just really getting into this. Um, just the whole thing of it was pretty amazing. And then one of the people in my group of five, and one of the gals, she walked into the room and she could see all these beings. She could see them coming into the room.
Giant beings, kind of energy beings.
Yep, yep, light
Something
beings.
that other
And
people have mentioned in Joe Dispenza's retreats. Yeah. So tell
yeah,
us more about
yeah.
that and what you think that was. And you didn't see it yourself, but some others.
I didn't myself. I am somebody that will always wear a mask to keep distractions to a minimum. So this girl was sitting there, one in our group of five. And then she looked around the room and she started to see these beings. Um, and then she had a being that came into her. She's somebody that's channeled before. And so she's had a channeling experience, but so it kind of wasn't unusual for her.
Mhm.
It might be something that I don't know that I would be too eager about. I don't, you know what I mean?
Does she take them to be extraterrestrials or interdimensionals or some kind of guides, or did she say what she?
I hadn't heard anybody say, what their origin is. However, that they're very interested in healing, period. They're not interested in talking to me or talk. That's what they're not there for.
They're not
They're
there
not
for like
interested in that.
prophecies or for guidance in that sort of sense, but
Correct.
but
Yep.
more
Yep.
just physical healing.
Yep, they're there for the healing, and that's the only time they come into the room. Because even my friend, she said, they're not at all interested in me. They're here for the healing.
Very interesting. There's a lot of mysteries in this world. Huh. Anything else that you might want to share about the experience that you had in the Joe Dispenza retreat?
Even children were there. There were young children when we first walked in. I'd say maybe there was six kids with their parents, small
Mhm.
children who had healers, on either side. And I wondered to myself, oh, how's this going to work? Like a little
Neat.
2-year-old is going to want to get up and move around. And yet it worked. It was just kind of a part of the,
Oh.
part of the thing, that whole coherence. There was a lot going on, and people were releasing some emotions. Some people were, you could hear them vocally crying out, having what Joe Dispenza calls like a bliss, like a pineal gland kind of orgasm.
Mhm.
And then these beings, for not everybody, but for some,
Mhm.
would see them, would feel them. They would come right into their body. Like there was a lot going on
Well,
in that room.
did you find out any stories that were told or testimonials there at the retreat of people who had rather miraculous shifts in their health right there?
I No, I didn't hear of anything at that retreat. But what he often does is he will bring a person up from the last retreat. Many people go back
Yeah.
because, like myself, I'd like to go back
Hmm.
sometime in the first quarter of 2025. And so then what will happen is, if somebody's coming back and they've had some kind of an experience, then he will get them to come up on the stage. But he didn't get one person to come up on the stage to relay anything that happened to them at that retreat.
Hmm.
And I think that might be on purpose. It doesn't want to distract people from their own experience, how we go in, our analytical mind, and I'm sure that other people are not that different from me. Oh, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to have a big mystical experience? You know, and it can pull you out, like these expectations of what you think you should see or what you want to see.
But you could compare yourself to the person who had the great experience and say, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, and I'm thinking that he wants to stay away from that
Uh-huh.
because yeah, that's not it. That's just more of this 3D
Yeah.
mind.
Before you finish, there's something I wanted to ask you. It seems like the understanding that a lot of people are coming to, including yourself, especially here, the way you've been speaking, implies that there's one consciousness really underneath all the. I mean, there's many
Mhm.
different realities that we're each the zillions maybe of realities that are being created in a way, but underneath it all, there's maybe one I or one consciousness, literally maybe an eye, even that sees through all these different lenses, perhaps. And so, if that's true, what if more and more of the apparent individuals that we apparently are were to wake up to that? Would that shift the whole state of consciousness like a catching on fire? Would it propagate through the whole system so that the whole world would wake up, so to speak? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I think so. I mean, if I drop into a possibility, and if a possibility is expressed through me, then it's for everybody. Yeah, so I do think so. And I don't know though if it means that we are lifting ourselves now, or the collective,
Oh,
to a different dimension.
mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about that, but I know that even in my practice, since going to that retreat and coming home, there's something about my world that's gotten so much bigger.
Huh. In what way?
And that is not just about me.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's different from the being about you in this dimension. It's tricky. I can hardly even put words to it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's hard to describe. All my life I've had uh, a feeling or a sense of purpose, like a mission. Perhaps it's self-imposed, perhaps it's not necessary. I don't really know, but the mission seems to be to participate in kind of saving the world in some way, to kind of
Mm,
to sort of help shift the earth, um, to save nature, to save the human race. I don't know, but it's just sort of that, and maybe that's just a complex. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not necessary. Maybe that's from seeing it as being a problem in the first place. But
right.
I was wondering if this is sort of like a new way that we're all together finding that we can do that collectively, or maybe, as I was suggesting, perhaps it's perfect as it is. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Perfect as it is. Yeah, it pretty much has to be.
Yeah, I would think so.
That's the way it is.
Maybe the drama and all this that's going on, the imperfections, the flaws that we seem to experience and all that, maybe that's just part of what makes it really interesting by contrast to whenever come those times, if you can call them times, of awakening, be it in this life or be it after this life. And, in other words, the drama is part of it.
It's interesting you say that because that's what's been getting my attention. Like, wow, what is all this? What is this drama? And is the drama there to, like, okay, you're not getting it, you're not listening. Let me get louder.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Like you're
Okay,
saying at
let's
the
do a
beginning.
COVID. Let's do a
Yeah,
COVID
right, right, right. Yeah.
worldwide. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. Before COVID happened, myself, like that winter, I remember saying to my husband, I'm getting kind of bored lately. I don't know. I feel like I could. It's like I could use some big dramatic thing here. I don't know what to do
Seriously.
with my life right now. I'm kind of tired. I was doing this, I was doing that, but I don't want to do that anymore. So now what? You know?
Well, honestly, and right? It's like, wow, like wow, I did it up good. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you wonder, exactly, like if we get bored,
Uh-huh.
what entertains us? What will get our attention?
Drama.
You bet, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that have been crossing my mind. Is this it? Is this what I'm doing? And
Yeah.
do I really need to do this? Could I just do it differently so
Yeah.
that,
Even if we're all at some level God or gods, does God need to do this? Maybe, I've
hmm,
considered that maybe what God is, I don't know about you, is it's a source energy that's creative, very creative, loves all kinds of form and color and drama and it's just maybe like a big stage play, but maybe some of the stage play has gotten a little too intense, really, and it's not necessary to kind of to do it quite at that level anymore. Something like that. That's kind of how my mind is toying with these days.
yeah, like what is this? Really necessary?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because we think time is real and we look back at human history, man, there has been an awful lot of drama and suffering and
Yeah.
violence and all that. That's like, wow. Or so it seems, at least that's what our history tells us, or some of
Yeah.
it. I'm sure there were lots of just average days, but but you
Yeah,
wonder.
and that is one of the things that gets my attention. I mean, I have this conversation with my husband often, like what is all this? What people there seems to be a lot of suffering here and a lot of struggle. Like, what is this? Where is this coming from? And what do I have to, what's my part in that?
Yeah, I love
You
that
know,
you're
what's my part?
that you're looking at it at that level. It seems like that if to me that if more and more of us begin to see it that way, that's going to shift. You can't help but shift.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because why would I make you wrong
Uh-huh.
if I really get, I put you there exactly
Yeah.
how I
Or
put
the,
you
the,
there.
the I that's, let's just say, the larger self, the higher self, let's just say, because it's so easy to say, oh, come on, Donna, you didn't create me. I was here, I was here long before I ever knew you know. But that's what the mind wants to see it. But if we say that who am I? If the I is really some higher self or some expression or some of the ultimate creator of God, I call it going into my God space. That's when I feel like I've seen things happen that are kind of miraculous. And it always feels to me like there's sort of a kind of a smile on my face, like when I get there, sort of like this whole thing's kind of a joke. I don't know if you've had that experience.
Oh
To
yeah.
think that we're just these little powerless worms, kind of that
Oh
don't, yeah. And but there's also something a little scary about it sometimes when I see that, I've seen things happening that seem to come out of that. I think, well, maybe that's just super ego, like it's just like the kind of thing that could get you, burned at the stake in days of yore. It's like
Right?
we're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to be careful. Like if you say,
Yeah.
I'm it, I'm God, I'm it, I'm all of it. And yet that is,
Yeah.
I don't know, I've had three really huge peak experiences where I had that experience. And so I know that.
Hmm.
And yet, what is this?
Yeah. Right. Right. It's sort of like something you keep to yourself. It's almost like a secret you keep to yourself.
Because it's such a subjective experience.
Uh-huh.
And for me, when I've had those peak experiences, I've had three where my third eye chakra literally blew open. And then I had where my heart chakra blew open, and then my lower, right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking around for like 2 years, like it was almost like I was having an orgasm. And I just pull up that energy and I'd pull it around my body, and nothing was real. And I was in la la land. And I probably could have used somebody who specializes in spiritual emergence to help
Uh-huh.
me integrate,
Uh-huh.
because I don't even know how that happened, what I did for that. That was a complete surprise, all three events. And I
Huh.
think that's sort of where I am now in my life, is that I actually want to create that consciously.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when
Rather,
it happened? How was this a long time ago or is it relatively?
uh, well, this one happened in 1997,
Mm-hmm.
and then my heart chakra was in year 2000. And then the lower one, the base chakra, was in 2003. And so almost like these cycles that actually
Hmm.
cycled in seasons. I'd be very interested to talk to somebody about that every 3.5 years.
Hmm.
And it's interesting now, I've gone 6 cycles 6 cycles, and now here I am, and I really believe I'm in a breakthrough,
Mm-hmm.
right? After 6 cycles of like the dark night of the soul, because what happened when I did have this awakening 3 years later, it was like, boom, I got grounded.
Hmm.
Lost my business, lost my livelihood, all my money,
Wow.
and I had a choice. It could have been like what's his name, Tully on the park bench,
Yeah,
Power
Eckhart
of
Tolle.
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And rather, what came up for me was fear. And I think when I look back on that, I think that was on purpose. It's like, come on up, come up, come up,
Mm-hmm.
handle so that I can see that that's not real, so that who I am is victorious.
As your consciousness expanded, the challenges became greater
Yes.
because you're able to handle them. And
And I wasn't, and I wasn't at I wasn't. And I think one of the reasons is because I had not experienced an integration.
oh,
I had this huge opening, huge peak experience. Like I'm like huge. I got time is stacked. There's one moment of now. There is no me and you. There is no separation. I mean, I was in it. I
mm-hmm.
was in
In a prolonged way, not just for a few seconds, but
Oh yeah, for years I was in la land, and I was I wasn't reading anything, I wasn't watching anything. I was just present.
oh wow.
And yet I didn't and I remember, I'd gone down to Monroe Institute, where they do a lot of consciousness through sound, and just really playing, not very different, not looking for conclusion, not looking for a fix. It was very, it was very different for me. But I remember one of the trainers at Monroe Institute said to me, you better get grounded. I'm like, who needs to be grounded? Yeah, well, I got grounded all right.
And well, wow.
Yeah, yeah, and then kind of been grinding around in this dark night for 18 years. And now this Dispensa retreat is part of it. Now it's really all of it is now making sense to me. And
Well,
even whatever trauma I experienced as a kid, in one of in this Dispensa work at the retreat, in
mhm.
one of my meditations, I got that it's all good. All of those things happened, and they were all perfect.
Yeah.
But the state of mind that I got that in is very different from the state of mind, like this analytical, being in this 3D. I can
Mhm.
hardly explain it. The two realities are, to me, like staggeringly different. I don't,
Yeah.
and I don't even know what to say about that, like they're just so different. So I'm exploring that. And I guess I would have to say that coming out of all of that, one of the big things that I've got is just like, relax.
Uh-huh.
It's okay.
Yeah. All is well.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, all is well. Even when I don't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's great. Wow. It's been really interesting talking with you, listening to you really. You have
Yeah.
a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight, and that especially this last piece that you shared about these awakenings that you had, in the late 90s, early 2000s, like, wow, those are really profound and unusual, I think, I think they're,
Oh, well, what was going on for me, it was incredible. I could see, I was there. It wasn't real. I could see the illusion.
Hmm.
I was experiencing synesthesia, where
Mm-hmm.
I was touching things and tasting them,
Oh,
touching
fascinating.
them.
Did you ever have an experience of like sort of going through matter or having like, Milarepa said to put his hand against a cave and it would sink into the wall and there's still imprints? Or there's stories that we were having a discussion last night in a group, and people were talking about there's a series of books called something like The Wisdom of the Masters of the Far East, in which there's
Yeah, I have that. I
do
have
you?
that series. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I have that
yeah.
series. Yeah.
Reading it's like pretty like 6 volumes or something. It's
Yes.
the 1800s where these
Yeah.
observers from the West go to find out some masters in the Far East, and they find all these miraculous things, these cities, these powers that they have, and these things that they can do. And he began where they began to have some of these powers themselves too, as well. But when they went back to
Mhm.
England or wherever they were from, they didn't have it. But it
Yeah.
showed something about reality or what's possible. And there were things I think included levitation, might have included walking on water. And I've heard elsewhere some other stories of an observer watching an older, sort of shaman in a tribe in the South Pacific teaching her granddaughter like a little dance, and he says, "Now look at this," and then the whole landscape changes, and then he says, "Oh," the girl goes, "Ooh," and then he says, "Okay, now you can undo it, just go the other way," and it went back, and this is Lyall Watson in one of his books.
Oh, Lyall Watson. Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got.
And so, well, if he's not just saying that to sell books, that says a lot about reality.
Well, I mean, for me, the only time I'd experience going through a wall, that would be in an out of body experience,
Yeah.
right? That's what I was starting to do, was to practice moving through things. But in this 3D, I was not doing that, but I was pulling things out of cupboards. I was moving things.
You mean like at a distance psychokinesis, like
Yeah.
that would include things like bending spoons or something, maybe.
Yeah.
But things, objects would actually just start moving without you touching them.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. And I was pulling things out of cupboards. I mean, and I didn't
Oh,
care. I didn't care.
yeah. Wow.
And if I would have been working with somebody, maybe some kind of a coach, maybe I could have developed that. I just laughed. I laughed at everything. I didn't care. I didn't
Wow.
care about anything. I would
Well,
just laugh and, oh, look at that. I
yeah,
didn't
like a
care
little
about
girl
anything.
in the
Yeah.
South Pacific. Wow. Wow. Well, so we were talking about this last night in this group. Like, so what if we could do these things? Like, what would it mean? And would we,
Yeah.
because there is this warning in Eastern religions, particularly not to get caught up into the cities or those kinds of supernatural powers. Probably, I would think because you get caught up in ego, saying, "Look how special I am," then that would take you to a duality consciousness right there.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Okay, so we're talking about these beings at Dispensa Retreat. And as I was sitting there, I could hear people maybe calling out, as they were meditating, again, maybe releasing
Hmm.
something that they had been hanging onto their body, some kind of pain or something psychological, or, this bliss. It occurred to me, like, I could see how some people could be in that room and it could be scary for them, because look at the whole Christian conversation, right? It's some of the stuff that's in the Bible, what that would have to say about some of this stuff, that it's satanic,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
And so, but even Dispenza, he chooses his words very carefully. There are certain things he just not going to go there in conversation, and I actually appreciate that, and I think that's very smart.
Doesn't acknowledge those beings verbally. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. There's been, yes, only in a few
Uh-huh.
interviews have I heard him talk about that. And even in the room of 2100,
Hmm.
where there would be somebody who was like, whoa, getting really verbal, like, whoa, something's happening over there. He would
Hmm.
say on purpose, like, wow, is that really necessary? Like, I think what he
Hmm.
was doing, he was like, tone it down. In other words, we don't need to get dramatic.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, like you say, ego, like, we don't need to get dramatic. We don't Be careful
Yeah.
of what kind of attention you're getting,
Mhm.
and what part of you is getting the attention.
Yeah. Very interesting. Wow, we probably could go on for days talking about this stuff. I mean, I'm kind of just wondering how much deeper even it could go, because this last part has been quite amazing to hear those experiences that you've had. And I wish you all the best in integrating all this to the maximum. You're a very special soul, I think.
Well,
You're an advanced soul, let's just put it that way, I think.
I think that I've been given, like, it's like, hello, wake up, wake up, wake up. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
don't know, but
Yeah.
and I haven't done anything for any of it. It's just occurred.
You didn't like
Like,
work years doing meditation and stuff or
I
visual.
did nothing. Yeah,
Exactly.
I did nothing. And there I am. I'm just lying down, and I feel like this lightning bolt came from my chest, hit the pelvic floor, went up the back of my spine. I saw purple for hours. I thought maybe I was dead. I checked to see if my fingers had burnt off,
Wow.
because it was hot. It was that hot. And then I was in Lala for like years, and people say, "Oh, what did some Rosicrucian guy? Oh, you must have meditated for like." And I no, I did nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does seem like some of the most profound experiences like that, like with Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie and others, have come out of the blue, or more when people were at the end of the rope, actually.
Well, I like that. It's interesting you say that because that's what Dispenza says. He says it's in the unexpected. Get out of the hoping it's going to look a certain way or
Mhm.
trying to set it up to look a certain way. Rather, expect the unknown. It's in the unknown. It's when
Yeah.
you least expect it. So there's so many things about this guy's teaching that I really think is brilliant. It's a very holistic approach. Considering what I've checked into and the experiences that I've had.
Mhm.
I love his approach, and I can also see how for some it might scare them.
Yeah.
It might scare them. Like I don't know. Like I don't know. Am I really ready to see a bunch of beings? I have no desire
Yeah.
for that even. You know what I mean? It's like I don't even care. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Right. Yeah. Well, that seems like a good attitude, to be neutral about it, to be more of a witness. Uh,
Yeah.
Before we go, I wanted to ask you if you have a service you offer to couples, especially, and are you open to having more people? Should we put a link down below?
Yeah, sure. I'm working with couples who are struggling in their communication and they're looking for a painless way,
Hmm.
a different approach rather than talking about it, therapy, looking for who's wrong or what's wrong. It's actually not as personal as they
Right.
think. And so I work in person. People want to come to me, I'm with them for 2 days or online. So sure, if you want to put my link down there, it's my website is www.betweenmenandwomen.com.
Hmm.
See, because here's the thing, you talk about consciousness. Here's what I learned, and this is why I do what I do. When a couple, when they have a really nice connection,
Hmm.
it's a good quality connection, there is a coherence that happens. And with intention, a good connection, you can get some amazing results. And they showed that at Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab
Hmm.
in the 70s, where a woman created a Plinko board. Do you know what a Plinko board is? It's like from The Price is Right. You put all
Oh.
those pucks or balls down the top
Hmm.
and they hit all these baffles and then they land on the bottom. Maybe a puck lands and you win
Okay.
$10,000. Maybe a puck lands over here, you only win three.
Yeah.
But the idea is as many balls or pucks are put down the top and they hit these baffles and then they kind of land
Right.
on the bottom. And at Princeton, they showed that if you put a subject in front of that wall before the balls are dropped, and that subject says, I want the balls to go to the right, or I want the balls to go to the left, that actually the balls would go to the right or they would go to the left.
Yeah. That's like
And
a
so they got a particular result. They could graph it. They got a particular result when it was just men. But when they put bonded couples, like a nice bond, they got 6 times the result.
wow. That's
So
really
I say
very significant.
it's hugely significant so that it's this relationship or this marriage is much more than just to be survived. You actually have a resource and people don't know that. And that's what I want them to get.
That's cool. And then, on that subject is if you have a small group that meets regularly or that has that develops a bond like that, then that also implies that it's going to develop more power to create a better world, or just create the kind of world we consciously really intend and want.
100%, right? Which is what the, power of eight groups are or
Yeah.
intention groups. There's a coherence there when we, drop into our heart and when we get clear on what it is we're intending and then how will we feel when that intention is realized.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very real.
Right. Yeah. And that part about how you will feel, I'm hearing more and more people saying that coming from this source or that source or this source, that feeling part is really important. Maybe we don't emphasize that enough. Sometimes maybe we work too much on this repeating an intention or some words or a
Mm.
visualization, but really it's the feeling that empowers it, like how you feel when things are as you would like to see them be.
That's what Lynn McTaggart's talking about. That's what Joe DiSpenza is talking about. That's what I talk about with my couples.
There is a field of positive feeling that you can access. We don't attend to it most of the time because of our conditioning. I studied a thing called psychology. It was then called psychology of mind, which is with that approach, and they were getting pretty miraculous results in relationships and also in some social settings where there was a lot of dysfunction. And just by teaching people to kind of navigate, the feelings level, that be a guide as to what quality of thoughts you're having, and just let the thoughts slow down and drop the thoughts when they're negative, and then find that there's always a well of well-being in oneself, which just has positive feelings in it, different flavors of love, whether it's patience or compassion or forgiveness. That's inherent to our nature.
Very true, and that's part of what got my attention here, why I wanted to go to Dispensa's retreat, because I could see dancing with these negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, what is the purpose?
Yeah.
What is somebody else's point of view here as to what is the purpose of that? Now, if you've studied psychology, anybody that has, one of the things you're going to learn is that in this reality, they call it a psychological bias called negative bias. And that gets a lot of our attention
Mm-hmm.
because it comes from survival.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what in the past year, it's like it's part of my breakthrough, right? Is that, okay, there are these negative emotions and this stuff that's going on with me. How much attention am I giving that? And do I really have to just because they're here, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel them? What, they deserve like all
Mm-hmm.
this real estate? Like, who says?
Yeah.
And what do I say about that? And I had never really said. And Susan, I looked hard. What I could see was resignation and cynicism, and a lot of it. And I thought, wow, okay, I could define myself as that, but I got one shot here. Maybe I got more, but right now I'm only aware of this one,
Right.
And so I could, just like I tell my couples, get self-disciplined. Well, then I could do that for myself. Just get
Mm-hmm.
self-disciplined
Mm-hmm.
and say, and yet, therapy or no, we have to make room. We have to talk about these feelings.
Right.
What
Right.
if we don't? What if
Yeah.
we don't have to talk about those feelings? What if we don't have to give them energy? What if we just have to be really aware and then get disciplined?
Yeah. That's what this
I
program
love that idea.
that I was talking about was doing. And it didn't,
Nice.
I thought it was going to grow more. This is something I encountered in like 1985 or something like that. It
Huh?
had already been going on for a while. It hasn't grown or spread as much as I might have thought it would have by now, but it was very
Mm.
effective.
What was it called again?
Well, at first they called it neo-cognitive psychology, and then it quickly changed into psychology of mind for a number of years. And then it became health realization. And right now it's called the three principles psychology. And if you look up the name George Pransky, you'll see a lot of information on it there. So anyway, the basic principles of it, as I understood it, was just that thought creates reality, creates separate realities. There are states of mind or moods that are important to understand and navigate, and feelings are the key to that. And when you're in a low mood, you just learn to recognize it, and you just are graceful about it. You just let it pass. You don't give energy to it like we were just talking about. And when you're in a good mood, your thoughts will be more positive. It's like what you should follow. It's what you should do. It's when they have those important conversations. And at those times, your positive feelings alert you to it, and you're just grateful. So that's pretty much the whole thing in a nutshell. But they found it was very effective for many situations, for couple relationships, for just individuals in social situations like in slums where there were dysfunctional things going on. They found that that was actually quite effective in just giving some education about that kind of stuff to the people, the clients that they were serving. It started in Canada, actually, not far from where you are. It came
Oh,
from a
yeah. Okay.
man named Sidney Banks, just a working class guy who had an awakening out there in Salt Spring Island.
Oh,
And
Salt Spring, of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
That's, yeah.
and one of his core insights was like, it's just thought. Like, whatever you're thinking, like it's just a thought. It's not, and also to follow the threads of a good feeling. Just follow a beautiful feeling. Those are two sayings he had. Just real simple. So some psychologists were listening to that and picked it up and turned it into a psychology.
Very powerful. When we master changing our state of mind, that's very, very powerful. And in this reality, in this dimension, in my world, including me, there's this victim consciousness that mankind and me, and when I look in my reality, I can see how I do it. Boy, I do it up good. I thought, oh man, you're doing the victim thing.
Yeah.
And okay, I've done that, and now I want to do something different.
Yeah. So maybe we should all consider that, like maybe we can do something different here. Let's just say there's an invitation there to us in these times.
Yes, that's what I see is like, yeah, there's this invitation, and it's okay. I don't have to take it.
Right.
It's okay. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay,
it doesn't mean anything.
Life if that's what you want, it's your choice, and so I think that's what God is doing is awakening in a way to God's self through evolution and through all the myriad of expressions of individuals, apparent individuals with apparent free will. Is exploring all the possibilities that there are, and that ultimately it comes home.
Yeah, possibility is endless, right? There's this possibility. So everybody is kind of an expression in any given moment of any given possibility.
And so be it. Well, that leads one naturally to a state of acceptance. Bring that down to politics, which is very contentious right now. So that enables you to see what you think of as the other side as just another being, another expression of the divine doing that particular role, and this one's doing that role for whatever purposes, and they each underlying all that really have very much shared values, probably.
Yeah, well, and I think where I and then maybe everybody have to be a little careful of is like the judgment we put on that, right? So there's these different expressions of possibility, and then in my little world, say, well, I don't like that, or I do like this, or this is bad, or this is good, which I think that's, as I can see even after this retreat, the analytical mind in this reality, wow, it's not it. It's just in this 3 dimension, it's just this analytical mind. It's really about survival.
I've had the experience with politics that at one point my view really changed when I realized that I was holding, the other side in a kind of a negative state, and realize that they're human, they have a soul, they're the same as I am, essentially. And I started opening my mind, and then I started seeing other things and seeing that there seemed like there was kind of a battle going on for the human soul, and it's like tempting to see it this way and that way. But, I've noticed that some people who observe politics or what's going on in the world, the crazy stuff that's going on in the world, will say, like, we're all one, like David Icke. And then on the other hand, they'll say, and yet there's the cabal, and we, the ordinary people, and there's this struggle, good and evil, that's going on. A lot of Christians frame it that way too. And it's easy to see some truth in that, but what you're saying is something different. So say more about that.
Well, and I get exactly that because I saw that too, and I do see that, and I even see that in myself. And then I go, oh, wait a minute, what is that? You can't have it both ways. Or that it's all perfect, and then all of a sudden, but this, it's all perfect except for this.
Right.
Or, it's all good, and then this is evil. Because if there's no separation, then that's me too.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I got very interested in, is that what if all of this conspiracy and they're doing this, they're spraying the skies, and I'm somebody who says that. Okay, I'm somebody who says that. Look at what they're doing, right? Look at what they're doing. But I have no power.
Yeah.
I have no power. But what if all these things that are happening do come from me? There's some fear or something in me that's generating that in my reality because it's the same frequency.
It sort of depersonalizes it, actually. You might say it's
100%.
Talking about which frequency are we feeding? Are we feeding the frequency of division and fear and conflict and judgment? Or are we feeding the frequency of love, inclusiveness, and peace, and the kind of world we really wish to see?
Because they're all there, right? All those frequencies are out there. All possibilities are possible. So if I'm having these experiences in my life, when I remember having these nightmares of kind of like what happened over COVID,
Mhm.
that I would be told that would have no choice and that I wasn't safe. I would have these nightmares most of my life. And then all of a sudden, boom, here we are. I'm in the nightmare that's very similar to my nightmare.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering, wow, okay, that certain things show up in my reality, however I label them, if I label them as evil or good, take the label away,
Yeah.
right? And take the us and them or me and them away. I wonder the frequency of what it is to have that particular thing happen the way it happens.
Mhm.
And some of my fears, my biggest concerns, my fears.
Mhm.
What if that's just all that it is? And so that, yeah, I'm going to pull that into my reality coming from somewhere in here, some fear that
Mhm.
I got attached to or got attached to me, that frequency, okay? The frequency of that, or the
And,
frequency of a certain thought or that feeling.
and it does seem there's a collective level to it, like, because you're not the only person here. I'm not the only person here, it seems. And yet there's this state of mind of oneness in which it feels like sometimes
Sometimes.
that one is the only person here, or the only being. There's only one consciousness.
It's my experience.
Oh,
It is my experience.
oh.
It is my
At
experience. The
times, right?
awareness is right
Yeah,
here, and there's only one.
right,
There's only one awareness.
right. Now that could be a delusion if we thought we were the only person in the world. I mean, when I was young, there was this guy that was stoned half the time that would hang out sometimes around this group house I lived in, and he would say something. One time he came up, he said, "You're just a figment of my imagination." And I'm thinking, that might have looked that way to him, but doesn't feel that way to me. I'm not a figment of his imagination.
But what if everybody that was in your reality was a reflection of you? What if everything that happened in your
Right.
reality was a reflection of you so that everything was a pigment?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I know Krishnamurti
I
used to
mean,
say, "You are the world," and just
yes,
one person really completely
yes.
changes the world. And so then my
Yeah.
mind goes, okay, well, if that was so, then he apparently changed. How come the world has not changed?
Well, if this is time space, there's going to be a lag. It would
Oh,
be no surprise that there would be a lag, right? I mean, this illusion of time. Usually, that's why what's her name? Abraham Hicks,
yeah,
Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks. She'll say it's a good thing there's time, right? Because if everything that you thought all of a sudden now that would show up in your reality, it could be dangerous.
yeah. It would also be like it'd just be like a giant explosion or collision of
Right,
everything happening at the same time, which sounds like the Big Bang,
right.
actually.
Yeah, right. So
Huh.
so in this 3D, to me, then it would make sense that and which is what all of those expert manifestors will say is that it comes from the quantum, it comes from possibility, it comes from energy, it comes from frequency first.
Mhm.
Then it shows up
Yeah,
in 3D, then it shows up as matter.
yeah,
But that just it's exactly this. It's exactly listening to guys like David Icke
yeah,
and all these people. You can't have it both ways.
yeah,
That's why I'm saying to myself, I'm just taking this on because I think I do have more control that way when I say it's all me. There
yeah,
is nothing that's not me. It's all me. And then what do I have to say about it?
yeah.
It starts here.
Yeah, I think maybe what I'm coming out of this with, though, is a little bit different. I'm gonna say, like, what makes sense to this one is to depersonalize it. Like, it's all this state of consciousness or this state of consciousness or this state of consciousness. It's like a force. It's like I don't say I am gravity, and yet there is a very personal, subjective nature to it.
Yeah, which might be the part that's not who we really are.
Yeah. We're all explorers. We're exploring. So
That's okay. I mean, and I think it's interesting, when you use the term evolve or evolution, let's say maybe what we're doing here is having the experience of being the underdog and then having the experience of being victorious. I would say seems to be my personal journey.
and that contrast, is what makes it exciting and beautiful. And as an artist, I've done a lot of study of like what is it that makes something beautiful, and it largely is contrasts. There's contrasts like in this painting, of direction, horizontal and vertical, and there's contrasts of light and dark and near and far and warm and cool, textured things and things that are sort of
Yeah.
soft and I think that's, and then music you can see the same thing, and in drama and movies and all those things, and I think that these contrasts are really the spice of life, and just to let them be when they're there. But again, maybe we don't want them to be, as stark as they sometimes are, but to be more harmonious.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's the thing, right? If I look at myself and I see that I can be so highly identified, with a thought or with a feeling to just remind myself that's not who I am. I'm not that
Yeah,
thought. So
yeah,
relax,
right.
girl.
Just a
Don't
thought.
get so jacked up.
Right. It's just a thought. Follow the thread of a beautiful feeling. You Canadians have some great wisdom. You Canadians over there.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a delight speaking with you, Donna. And I thought we probably better wrap it up. So, and
Yes. Yeah.
all the
Thank you
best.
for inviting me, Susan.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. All the best.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi. Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? Donna's one of the most interesting guests I've had. I especially like that part about finding when she really merged with the universe, 20 years or so ago, she was able to control objects in the cupboard with her finger. I think she's telling the truth. What does that tell us about reality? One of the things I noticed too was that after those experiences happened to her, she went crashing downhill for some years, having a lot of difficulties and so forth. And I've begun to notice myself sometimes when I get all excited about, I think I get reality now. I think I see it's just a dream. And then something will come along, often very soon, to kind of bring me back down to earth. And sometimes in kind of weird ways. So here's a theory I'm developing about that. See what you think. If the whole thing's really a cosmic divine drama, if we're just actors on a stage, as Shakespeare says, and others have said, and as we see in reports from near-death experiences or people who've gone under deep hypnosis, like in books like Journey of Souls, it's almost like after the life is over, after the drama's over, the actors get back together behind stage and laugh, like, oh, you did a great job, playing the villain, or you were pretty good at the victim too, and you did a good job at this. This could have been better. Maybe we'll try it again. But just like in making a great movie, you wouldn't break character actually during the performance that's being filmed. In other words, if you were playing the bad guy, you wouldn't kind of like suddenly go, I'm just kidding. So it's like the drama has to go on. It has to come to completion. And then we can all have a good laugh and wake up. So I'm kind of wondering if that's kind of what's going on now today in the world. A lot of people are waking up, and I wonder if it's possible we might all have a great big cast party at some point and have a great laugh about it and the roles that we played. I don't know. We'll see. Tell me what you think. And if you like this kind of content, please give it a like and subscribe. Take care.